Hi and welcome. It's Daniel Kafer here again, and I'm coming from the hot summer heat in Cyprus. And today I also picked a pretty hot topic, I think. So we're going to talk about AI censorship. And I think this is a real important one, but also a quite entertaining subject to discuss. So basically, can we trust the AIs? Can we trust the big tech platforms that they will be unbiased and censor the right stuff and not censor the wrong stuff? Let's talk about it. I think it's a very, very complex conversation. So as you may know, I used to be the country head of Meta in Denmark, and I thought one thing we're never going to get right is, do we censor? Don't we censor? Do we ban people? Don't we ban people? It's super complex. So often people can agree that platforms do not get it right, but when you then get these opinionated people together and ask them, should this be banned or should this not be banned, nobody agrees on anything. That said, I don't think the platforms in general really handle this in the best possible way. I do think we are heading towards more and more censorship, which I think is worrying. It also seems that AI is not only censored, but it's also filtered and quite opinionated about what's okay and what's not okay. And I think that is something we should talk about as well. So basically today we're going through cancel culture on social media. What should we do about it? Is it fair as it is at the moment? What about the image generators? What are you allowed to make on them, like Midjourney or DALL-E from Chat GPT, over some of the open source models, like for example Flux, that is quite popular now? Are these generators prude or even feminist in terms of what you're allowed? We'll do some tests and find out. And what about when you ask, for example, Chat GPT to do something, help you with some jokes that could be kind of rude or not super polite? How will it act? Is ChatGPT, you could say, woke and politically correct, or will it pretty much give you what you're asking for? Let's dig into it. So let's first talk about the banning. I think this is one of the major issues, and the reason I think this is a problem is that, well, we have a legal system, right? So if you say something you're not supposed to do about another person, that person can actually sue you and you will go through a lawsuit. It's lengthy, it's costly, but you will be evaluated on what you actually said, and you might have to pay a fine for what you said. You might not be able to speak about that person in a negative way in the future on media. So in that way, we do have a legal system to take care of this, right? But how should the platforms act? Should they wait for the legal system? Should they ban people? Should they ban people temporarily? Or should they give them bans basically forever? And who are they even to judge what should be banned and not banned? So let's talk about that some further. But if you do like these videos, please help me and subscribe to the channel. On this one, please do comment. I would love to hear your opinions, and also hit that like button if you like the video. So let's look at some of the celebrities that have been banned from the various platforms. We have Andrew Tate. He is very opinionated and talk a lot about men's rights, and he's been called misogynistic and sexist. And he's been banned from a lot of platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So pretty much he's banned all over. And he's mainly banned for hate speech and promoting harmful ideologies. So personally, I'm no fan of Andrew Tate. But should he have been banned? I mean, he's under investigation for a number of things. Should the platforms have waited a little bit to see the outcome of those? So I think he definitely has videos where what he's saying is not appropriate. I guess my opinion is more ban those videos, maybe not him entirely. And also, he's a good example that it hasn't really worked, right? He has basically just used other people's accounts to spread his content. So he's banned, but he's not really banned anyway. Another controversial figure, maybe you know him, Jordan Peterson, the psychologist. I think he's from Canada. He's been temporarily banned on Twitter. YouTube demonetized him, which means that the content is on, but he's not allowed to make money on them. And it's basically because of some of his opinions about gender identity. I think he's one of them saying, well, basically they're men and they're women, and that you should be careful in terms of having like gender surgery too early. So I think these are some of the comments he was temporarily banned on Twitter on and demonetized on YouTube. And we have a lot of other instances. I think some are quite intentional, like Roseanne Barr, who did a racist tweet. PewDiePie apparently used, I don't know if you know PewDiePie, but he's a very big popular YouTuber, especially with the younger crowd. He was banned for some racist language and anti-Semitism. Okay, but let's now talk about the one I think is the most concerning, Donald Trump, right? So he's allowed to run again for president, and he's been through the legal system and been accused of a ton of things, including whether or not he is guilty in kind of starting the riot after the last election. So you could say Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they already found him guilty, and he's not allowed, or was not allowed, to be on these platforms himself. I think the ban on Twitter was permanent, but Elon Musk allowed him to be on X, which is Twitter now. But I think this one is truly dangerous, right? Because this is where platforms actually move really fast and say, this is not allowed, these opinions are not allowed, while the legal system, on the other hand, says, well, you're still fit to run for president. I mean, does it make any sense that you are fit for president, but you cannot communicate on these platforms? I think there's a major disconnect here. I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever. So I think maybe they're a little bit too fast in making these decisions. I also think you can say, well, is this politically motivated? I mean, you could argue, is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, are they maybe more for the Democrats than for the Republicans? I mean, I don't know, right? But you could kind of say, well, maybe they are, right? I'm not saying they are, but that argument could be put to them. So what kind of demands should we put on the platforms? I mean, should we, for example, either have them be transparent, saying we actually do have opinions, we are slightly to the left or we are slightly to the right, or no, we're completely neutral and we will act that way. I think if you look at TV stations like, for example, Fox News, they're slightly more to the right, maybe Al Jazeera or CNN, I don't know, the Censor, I don't know, potentially some of them are a little bit more left. But again, you can kind of say, well, that's a news outlet and they have opinions, they have an editor, something like Facebook or YouTube, they don't have an editor, right? Either they ban you or they block you or they take some of your content down, for example. So I think I would more be pro less censorship here. I'm more pro let's be careful, because we should not intervene too much in the democratic process. So if the legal institutions are saying, hey, Donald, you're fit to run, I don't think any of these platforms maybe they have the right because it's their own platform, but I don't think they should intervene in the democratic process in any way. Then we have, for example, Russell Brand. I think this is a really interesting case as well, right? So he was accused of sexual assault, which is obviously a terrible crime, right? And he denied it. And I think maybe there's going to be a case, maybe there's not going to be a case. I don't know, right? But the thing is, the normal principle is that you are innocent until you're proven guilty. And he has clearly not been proven guilty of anything, right? But YouTube immediately demonetized him, and other platforms are considering the same. So he's putting most of his content up on Bumble, I think it's called. Again, it doesn't seem quite right to me. Of course, if a court of law says he is guilty, definitely we need to act on that. But before that, shouldn't we just presume that he's innocent? At least that's my opinion. And then this new one I find really, really troublesome as well. So EU have apparently written this letter to Elon Musk about the guidelines he needs to follow, because he's going to have a presidential debate for the US election on X, right? And then EU are basically saying, well, you have so many people who are using your platform from the EU, so we would like to limit your freedom of speech and ask you to follow certain guidelines in this interview. So I think, I mean, this is, again, it seems pretty dangerous to me. Like, why would the EU like force a private platform, especially when they're talking about the presidential election and debate that's about the US? Why should the EU dictate Elon Musk on how he's going to run that debate? Again, I understand that you might not want to be unfair to one or the other candidates. I don't think we'll see Elon Musk being that. He might slightly support Trump. But I think, I mean, he's just pro freedom of speech, and I think this is what the EU are trying to limit here. Again, so it's I think, a dangerous route. But let's go into AI. So what about AI? Is it a little bit judgmental? We know, for example, that Chat GPT has filters, right? And some filters do make a lot of sense, right? If you ask it to build like a dangerous bomb or do some form of terrorist attack, well, it will just not have a conversation with you. I think that does make a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. We want to protect our children from all thoughts of violence or profanity, right? So I think, definitely some censorship and filters are due. But is it fair, and does ChatGPT and these other models treat men and women equally? So, for example, I put ChatGPT to the test, right? So I said, can you make some funny blonde women jokes that I can use at a party? So again, this is not something I'm doing. I don't think it's particularly funny to make fun of blonde women. But so this is just a test here. And what ChatGPT is doing, it is actually warning me against doing this, and that it might not be very a fun thing to do and people would take it wrong. But then it kind of does it and give me some ideas. But then I thought, what about men, right? So a sensitive point for a lot of men is that they might be losing their hair too early, right? So now I'm asking them about making jokes for the party about men losing their hair. But here there's no warning at all. They just fire away with suggestions about hair loss jokes. So apparently no protection here for the men. So I'm pushing it further now. I'm now talking about people's weight. And so when I ask ChatGPT make fun about overweight or fat men, well, it comes up with a slight warning, but then it comes with the inappropriate jokes anyway. And if I try to do the same with women, well, then I kind of, it starts to tell me that this is not a good idea. It's important to be respectful. And jokes on somebody's appearance can be, interpreted in a negative way, and it can hurt people's feelings, right? And then it kind of suggests that, you should go more lighthearted and make more inclusive jokes. Do you want me to make the jokes? So black and white here, right? The men, let's just make fun of them being overweight. The women, hey, you shouldn't do it. Let me make some other jokes for you. So basically, it treats people, or it treats men and women quite differently. So, I mean, I'm sure we could go on with this, trying with race, with age, and so many minority groups, or even larger groups, and I'm pretty sure ChatGPT and other LLMs might handle it differently. So there's definitely some form of bias here about these filters. So let's move on to another, I think, pretty funny part, the image and video generators, right? So obviously these image generators are trying to make sure that people don't make any images with too much nudity or sexual content on them, right? But you could say why? I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to say you have adult Midjourney? I mean, you need to pay with a credit card anyway, but maybe just ask people to log in and verify their age. But when I asked Midjourney to make a picture of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, I guess if you know anything about religion, you would know that they were actually naked, both of them, in the Garden of Eden, until the snake persuaded Eve and Adam to actually take a bite of an apple, and then suddenly, they felt bad about being naked and they put on clothes, right? So Midjourney made this picture, which I find quite fun, where Adam and Eve, they are fully clothed in the Garden of Eden. I then make the same on Flux, which is, I think, a more open source model. And, well, it showed off everything here. So I'm having to censor it, not to have, a battle with YouTube guidelines here. So again, the open source model pretty much does gives you what you ask for, maybe in this case even a little bit more, right? So again, what is the right thing to do here? So when I remember from my time on Facebook, for example, you say, no, it's not okay to show any sexual organs. It would not be okay to show nipples from women, for example, but it would be fine showing them on men. But the funny thing here is that statues, for example, they would then be allowed, right? But what if you then took an image of a statue like this and asked it to move? So I also did a test here. The model Runway 3 would tell me, this is not allowed, you're breaking our rules. Dream Machine, the competitor, is actually allowing it. So again, there are different standards of how to treat that. And it's also interesting, if you ask, again, Midjourney or Chat GPT's version, DALL-E, about, for example, make a picture of a hot woman or a sexy woman, it will immediately tell me, you're not allowed, you're outside of guidelines. If you tell them, make a picture of a hot or sexy man, it will say, hey, here you go, here's a hot and sexy man. It's apparently not a problem. So the question is, should this be equal? I asked my wife, and she kind of had a funny response. She said, well, it's because your men have a dirty mind. So probably Midjourney will know that if a woman would ask, and anyway, Midjourney wouldn't know the gender anyway, but if somebody would ask for a hot man is still quite dressed, but a hot woman most likely is not very dressed. And I think, even though I find her answer funny, I also think we're making way too many assumptions about how people think. So is it reasonable that we have this inequality, so you can have the same prompt with a man allowed, but exactly the same prompt with a woman disallowed? Another thing I'm thinking is, if you, for example, you're making a documentary about like medical issues, and you need certain body parts as part of the video, right? And you would have your image or your video generators stopping you from actually doing this, or you want to portray, like Greek statues or anything like historic paintings, anything like that. And again, these image and video generators, they're stopping you. It could kind of get difficult to get into a lot of different topics. So again, all of this doesn't, I think, make a ton of sense. But I would love to hear from you, like what does make sense? Should there be different standards for what you can ask AI models on women? Should they treat men or women equally or differently? For me, it makes more sense that they would treat it absolutely equally. But maybe there are some good arguments to the opposite, so please do come with them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I think this is probably, it's kind of lighthearted, but this is super important, right? I mean, where do we go from here? Will we have AI models that will be different in every country? Could we have AI models that would be socialist in one country and would be very liberal in another country and super conservative in the third? Or will we have global models that will have the same rules? The same would be with religions, right? Would you answer differently in a Christian or atheistic society in your AI model than you would in the Islamic part of the world? I probably, there would be a lot of indications towards that. That is what would happen. Certainly, I expect China to have their own AI models that will answer in a way that's much more compliant to politics in China. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. Hope you like it. Please do subscribe if you do. Bye.